Hello.
Hey, good day to you all.
Or evening.
Well, it depends on what time people are listening.
Yeah.
See, right now we're recording, it's evening, but I guess it could be the morning
It's
for
like
some folks.
almost 9.
Eastern time.
Yeah, Eastern time is 9.
9 o'clock Eastern time. So I'm Sam, this is Jasmine. We're here again on our third podcast episode. It's called Back to the Basics. We are helping you and also talking to each other and learning about how to get back to the basics between you and your child. Again, in the fast-paced world we live in, technology filled on the go all the time. Sometimes having that real relationship with our kids can be a challenge. So that's what we're trying to help out with. And today we're going to be talking about trust. So, Jazz, maybe kind of go over a little bit what we talked about last time about the inventory.
So
and how we landed at trust.
Right. We talked about taking an inventory of, how to spend time with your kid, how to put away time for your kid, to have them trust you and come to you first for things. And so today we're going to talk about how to be a trustworthy parent, and also me as in be a trustworthy kid too. But yesterday I made a comment, I think it was, that, for your child to come to you for things, they have to trust you, and they won't, if you're not a trustworthy parent, they won't come to you for stuff. So we're going to talk about being trustworthy today.
Right, and building trust too.
Yeah.
Before we kind of get to the nuts and bolts of how to regain, how to build trust with your child, we have to take an honest look about breaking trust. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today, the reality that trust is broken.
Because it happens.
It does happen.
Happens here at home sometimes.
We're going to talk about how to rebuild that trust when the trust is broken. But we're going to start off like we start off every episode with a Bible verse. Psalm 9 verse 10 says, "And those who know your name put their trust in you. For you, O Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you." One more time. Psalm 9 verse 10. "And those who know your name put their trust in you. For you, O Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you." Trusting God, right? God is worthy of trust. He is 100% trustworthy. Everything he says, he does. Even when we don't understand it, or we don't see it, we don't feel it, or even think it. The truth is, God is trustworthy, right?
Yeah, it's definitely true.
Every area of life, we can go to God and trust him and know that he has the plans already worked out. He has the plans already for you, for those who love him. God works things out.
Yeah, there's been times in my life, maybe a month ago, where I felt like God rejected me, God turned his back on me. But now, after God helped me push through the situation, now I look back and I was like, well, he was there the entire time. It's just I didn't see it, but he was still there. So he's always there even when you don't see it, or you don't see him, or maybe it doesn't feel like you can see him, because we base a lot of our thoughts and actions by what we feel, unfortunately.
At the end of the verse it says, "For you, O Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you." So as we look after God, as we pray to him, and we put our faith and trust in him, he shows us in many different ways that he does not forsake us, that he is always there, like Jasmine said. Even in the darkest times, his hand is reaching out to you and to me and to all of us. His hand is reaching down. And we have to grab a hold of that hand.
Right. I knew he was still there. I just never felt it. But there were times where I was like, you know what, God, you're there. I just don't feel it, but I know you're there. So, and the feeling of that God is there may not be there all the time, but you have to know that he is there anyway. That's trust.
Sometimes you don't feel in your heart, but you know it in your mind.
Right.
You have to let God translate those thoughts into your heart.
And that's what I did. Like, your thoughts will come first. You have to change what you think first, and your heart will follow. That's what my mom says. She says, change what you think and stay like that, and your feelings will follow.
So, here we're talking about us and God, and how God is completely trustworthy for everything. Mm-hmm. But, for here, and talking about our relationship with our kid, see, parents and children, we're humans. So what does that mean? What are humans? What are we?
Sinners.
We're sinners, and we fall short. So let's just talk about the reality for a minute. Again, the reality is God's trustworthy. We can trust him with everything. But the reality of trust between humans is that it can be broken, and it will be broken. You know, our loved ones will break our trust. We will break our trust with our loved ones. You know, sometimes, there's trust issues in marriage. There's trust issues in friendships. There's trust issues in churches. And there's also trust issues with our kids. And that's a reality. And I think sometimes I know for me, I as a parent, I kind of put a lot of trust into my kids that what they're going to do and say and act, that it's going to be right all the time. And then when that doesn't happen, when they are do the right thing, I get upset.
Or sometimes what you think is right too, because we're all human. You're not always right too. I'm not always right. You're not always right. Mom's not always right. I'm pretty
close though.
You're very close though. But there's times
99%.
90%.
I'll take 90. 9 out of 10.
85.
85. How's it going downhill all of a sudden?
85 to 90%. You're right. There's that 15 to 10%. But maybe sometimes what I'm saying is sometimes because you're a sinner and I am the sinner, maybe something that you think is right, I don't live up to. And yeah.
See, that's what it is. See, what you're saying, we're about to say, I just interrupted you, which
you did.
I did that.
It's
and
okay.
You do that too, see?
Yeah.
All right.
At the same time. Anyway.
I missed it.
Yeah, that was a reference back to the first episode.
Yep. Reality is, and what you were getting to is, we have an expectation of each other, right? I have an expectation of you as a child. I have expectation of me. I have expectations of my spouse, Patricia. We have expectations of our pastors, of our leadership in our churches. But because we're all fallen, because we all are sinners, we all fall short, the fact is we're going to fail. And we're going to fail each other. And by the way, just so you know, our kids will fail us. And also, we will fail our children. So I guess the first thing that we have to realize is there will be failure. Expect it. Don't be surprised.
Yeah, because sometimes when you have high expectations, I know, I have like a little story anecdote with my brother.
All right, it's going to be a minute.
I know, it's going to be a minute. With my brother, Jonathan.
On.
Yeah, I know.
That's
like the third time. It's okay. Jonathan, my brother, I remember when I was, still sometimes, I have high expectations of him because he's 12. And sometimes he acts his age, sometimes he acts older than his age, and sometimes he acts a lot younger than his age. And so at the times when he acts a lot younger than his age, I have high expectations, and then when I don't see that, it makes me upset and makes me not want to do stuff with him. And so that's when I have to lower my expectations sometimes, when those times happen, and not to be surprised, because actually, I act younger than I am a lot too, so I can't really say anything. Ask Dad, ask Mom, anybody I know, they would say that I act younger than my age sometimes.
Well, I mean, in the adults,
you act younger than you are sometimes.
But yeah, I guess that can be a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing.
But in a negative, I mean, sometimes I can act pretty childish. Now, I can be childlike and be funny, and we can have a good time. But I can be childish in things that I'm complaining about, childish in how I react, childish in, again, even like we've talked about, expectations way too high.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yep.
So I guess to accept the fact that there is going to be failure, there is going to be a break in the bond. I mean, that's just the way it is. Though we want to be careful to say we're not just going to accept the failure, saying it's okay. There are times when our children will disobey and they will walk the other way. They will be rude, disobedient. We're not saying just say, well, this is just a part. It's just a failure. It's okay. We're not excusing the failure. However, it's how we respond to that failure. That's the key. And how we respond to the failure is key on building trust.
What that reminded me of, we actually watched the Andy Griffith Show last night for the first time, and there was this one scene with the dad where his kid was lying, and the dad knew it. And the dad, his name's Andy. Andy, he knew he was lying, but kind of played along with it until the boy realized, oh, okay, that was wrong. Also, another part where the boy wanted to run away, Opie wanted to run away, and then Andy's just like, oh, well, I'll help you write the note. And so he wrote the note and said, "Oh, dear Dad, I'm never gonna see you again." And so
what were you expecting? I was expecting him to get all mad at me.
exactly.
He said, "What are you doing? You're too young. That's ridiculous."
But he played along with it. He played along with it and kind of gently showed Opie that, what he was doing was wrong, and he was gonna do something that he'll definitely regret doing. And then because Opie's like, "No, I'm never gonna do that. I'm always gonna stay here."
What he did was he helped Opie see it for himself.
See, that's what I want to do when I'm a parent. That's my goal when I grow up and get married and have kids. I want to help my kids see it for themselves instead of, giving them punished all the time when they do something wrong. Sometimes they have to see it for themselves because actually, you know what? Sometimes when you punish your child so many times, the child they're not going to see it for themselves. Now, it may work with some kids, but other kids, they're just going to be like, "Oh, I got punished again." Well, sometimes they have to see it for themselves.
We are going to have a couple episodes on discipline, by the way.
Right.
So that will come up then.
Sorry.
No, that's good. No, that's perfect because I think sometimes I've worked with hundreds and thousands, not hundreds of thousands of families, thousands of families, probably maybe 1,100, 1,200 families.
Yeah.
And I would refer to this as putting up the mirror. We want to help to put up the mirror so they see themselves.
Right.
We don't want to just tell them what they're doing, tell them what they're doing wrong, and point the fingers at them. We want to hold up the mirror and let them see it for themselves. Of course, kids need to be disciplined and corrected. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
But I think sometimes we just come at them.
We do it you do it the wrong way. Like parents, you do it the wrong way.
You've done it the wrong way. I've done it the wrong way.
You have.
I have.
I was the firstborn child. I know.
By the way, when you point, I kind of was pointing the finger. Nobody could see it here. We're just on audio. I pointed the finger. You point the finger. How many fingers point back?
Ooh, yeah.
3. So you point one out. 3 turn back to you. So again, we do that often, and that's something that breaks trust. When we're just telling, and lecturing, and yelling, that breaks trust.
It does. I know that for a fact. Definitely does.
So again, we've established that with humans, trust can be broken with human beings, our kids, our spouses, families, churches. And there will be failures, so expect it. Don't be surprised. And again, when thinking about teenagers, for example, teenagers have broken. I broke a lot of trust with my mom and dad when I was younger. A lot. I wasn't a Christian then. You've broke trust, Jazz, sometimes with us, and some of those conversations are pretty difficult.
They are very, very, very uncomfortable and puts a damper on the whole week.
Well, and this is kind of a dampering kind of episode up until this point. We're at 13 minutes. It's kind of a downer, a little bit, right?
Yeah, we need to lighten up a little bit.
All right, well, let's lighten up, and let's talk about ways we can restore that trust. I mean, we've kind of broken things down and broken everything down here on the reality of trust. Let's talk about restoring trust. If you realize that your trust is broken, maybe you don't trust them. They don't trust you. There's that gap. There's that distance. Here are a few things that are going to help you with that. First thing is this, and this is probably, I would guess, these first 2 are the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
Be honest and upfront with your child.
And vice versa. Child, be honest with your parents. That's also very hard.
Be upfront. I mean, have the conversation, and we're gonna role play here. Role play means we're gonna act it out.
Okay.
Jasmine, to be honest, I feel that there's been some trust issues. That I'm feeling like I can't trust you with certain things. I'm just being honest about that. And I'm going to give you the reasons why. A, B, C. It's a conversation. It's not I don't trust you and you don't trust. It's not that.
Nothing gets resolved when you do that. I've found out that when you, I guess not necessarily yell or anything, but when you are demanding and say, "You're this and you're not that," I know from experience that does not build trust at all. It does not work.
Doesn't. So let's acknowledge with our kids, that there's a trust problem. Just tell them that. Be upfront and honest. And then your kid will probably be surprised saying, "Wow, my parents telling me something about him or her."
And it kind of makes it, and honestly for me, when Dad does that to me, not just for like Trustworthy or just anything, I think, well, if Dad says that, there's probably something wrong. Maybe. So I kind of have to think about it a little bit and pray about it.
Okay. So the first one is be upfront, be honest. The second one is Again, first two are the toughest. Ask forgiveness for your part.
And sometimes do it first, too. Because if you do it first, it's like the kid's like, wow, they're actually saying sorry to me for what they said.
Yeah, if you know for a fact, parents, if you know that you're part of the reason why there was trust broken, maybe there was, a bad reaction or a yelling or a lecture or whatever that you hurt your kid, you hurt your child, their heart and their mind, maybe you need to just go and ask forgiveness, I just want to tell you, when I got mad at you last week, I'm sorry about that. It didn't come out right. It doesn't have to be on your knees crying, asking forgiveness, though sometimes it can happen that way.
Yeah.
If it's a big thing. Or maybe you haven't asked forgiveness for from your child for months or years.
And it's okay to cry, and actually crying makes it more serious, and the kid's going to be like, wow. Just saying.
And if the parent does that first, almost every single time the child will come and ask forgiveness right away.
Oh, yeah.
Asking forgiveness is a powerful thing.
It is. Very.
So if there's, and we'll talk about that at a later episode as well, what things we need to ask forgiveness for from our kids. That's a big one. But that will break down that wall. If there's a wall, a gap, a trust issue, that'll break it down. Being honest and up front, look, there's a trust issue here. I'm sorry. Forgive me for my part for yelling at you, for maybe mistakes made in the past. Number 3, what does it say there?
Ask them questions. Parent, ask them questions. What can I do to fix it? So saying like, Dad, if he comes and says sorry, he'd be like, oh, what should I do to fix it? And actually, you know what you do sometimes? You're like, am I a good dad? And then we're like, what do you think if I need to improve on as a dad? You've asked me that before, and I'm like, well, actually, most of the time it's no, not really. Though sometimes yeah, sometimes no.
Right, it's not necessarily not fix the whole relationship, but that's important. But to fix what's happening right now.
Right.
Say I'm noticing that my child will come to me and talk to me about everything or whatever, then I haven't seen it for a while, and then I go to say, what's going on? What can we do to fix it? Maybe it's just a thing. Maybe it's just a one-time thing that you did. Maybe it's not a big thing, but maybe it is a big thing.
Maybe something you didn't even know you did.
Ask them the question. Hey, I know there's been a trust issue here. You're not coming to me. What can I do to fix it? See, parents, we have to own it. Even though maybe we know the problem is a child because the child is acting the way the child's acting. We know that for a fact. But we have to acknowledge and do our part. So asking them, what can I do? Is there something I can do? Something I'm not doing to fix it? And then number 4, I'm going to put here. There's only 3 more, and we're done for today. Commit to them again. So in your heart, we have to recommit ourselves to our child. So sometimes we have to say, there's a trust issue here. I'm acknowledging it. Forgive me for my part. What can I do to fix it? Come back to them and say, you know what? I love you. I'm committed to you. I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to give it. God gives us many, many chances every day. So give your child a shot. Give them a chance. Say, I'm going to give you a chance, another chance. So let's talk it over. And I'm going to put number 5, go right to the next one. It says, be around and be there for them when they need it. Be around and be there for them. When we have a gap in trust, we sometimes don't want to be around that person.
That's very true.
We just don't want to do it. So if we're committing to them again, we also have to commit to being around them and being there for them when they need it. That's important. Right?
Yeah, very. It's very true.
Last one is be current.
Yep.
Same thing. Be current. Be on top of what they're doing, what they're thinking, how they're feeling. Don't let it sit there. If there's a lack of trust, there's a lack of forgiveness. Our next episode is going to talk about bitterness.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Another big one. It's a heavy one.
Tough.
Heavy one. Bitterness is a heavy one. But if there is that, don't let it linger. Don't let it sit there. Don't let it sit there. Right away, be current. Be up to date. That's an important part of that relationship.
Right. One more thing I want to add.
Sure.
Maybe 6.5.
6.5 in Jasmine, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Encourage your child to tell them what's good about them. Maybe sometimes you don't say anything, or sometimes you say negative stuff, or just not anything at all. And sometimes not saying anything at all is just as bad as saying something negative. So, every once in a while, you don't have to do it all the time. Just say, hey, you know what? You're really this. You're really that. I like this part about you. You're doing that. I remember I mean, it just feels good to hear people say it. So I know if it makes me feel good.
Hey, if you're a parent going to your child to try to kind of reclaim that bond, that's part of it too.
Right.
Tell them what's good about them.
Oh yeah.
But you also have to remind yourself, because sometimes you can be so upset and angry you can't even remember it. You don't even think of anything good. You have to make a list, as we were talking about taking an inventory. Make a list of the good things that your child does, but communicate that.
Right.
All right, so we are done. Our next podcast episode, we're gonna talk about bitterness and what that can bring, and which is again a very heavy topic. The episode after, episode number 5, we're going to air an interview we had with Melissa Joan Hart from God's Not Dead 2. We interviewed her, and she's going to talk about her busy life and how she parents, and she's always on the go. She's actually filming now in England.
Whoa.
I've read, so she's doing that.
I didn't know about that.
She is.
That's
so
sweet.
What she shared with us about parenting kind of on the go, very, very interesting. That was a great interview.
It was.
So Melissa Joan Hart will be coming up after the next one.
Sweet.
Anything else before we get done?
Yeah, Dad, can I ask you a question?
Oh, is it a yes or no?
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Can I get a mooyah?
All right, we're going to get a mooyah. For all of... Anything with that? We don't want... Let's not get into that.
Okay, let's
All
not.
right, so we're thank you again for
didn't give a
listening.
mooyah.
We'll see you next time. Take care.